Welcome back to video number 3. I've done a couple takes of this because I want to go through everything and go over everything and help out as much as I can. But going at this unscripted and unplanned, I kind of tend to do just a little rambling just because there's so much I want to cover, so much I want to get over for folks to understand about these machines. So I'm going to slow down, redo this video, and just focus on certain areas. So when I label the video, you guys can say, this is what I need to work on. This is where I'm gonna go. We got the machine fully cleaned and ultrasonic. In the other videos, I mentioned we were gonna do that. And that the other video talked about operational assessments and how you really need to understand how a machine works in order to fix a machine and put it back into how it works. With these Olympia machines, most of the work needs to be done with the platen in, so I put the platen back in, and then they need to be up off of the deck, so I insert the body mount screws back into their positions with just the screws, and that gives the machine a chance to be usable off the deck, because in this naked state, if you just set it on the desk, it won't type, because it types. It moves the U-bar. The universal bar is connected to everything, and that will interfere and you won't be able to do any kind of typing. So if you're in this position where you're naked, your machine's naked, and you want to do some service work, get it up off the deck, put the platen in it, and then we'll go. Now, today we're going to focus on carriage issues. I did the full rundown of this machine, and there was nothing really that it needed. There was a grinding sound when I was moving the carriage. And a lot of times with these Olympias, there's a silent return spring issue, which will be a separate video. So stay tuned if you want to learn how to do the silent return spring. I'm going to show you the best and easiest ways to do the silent return springs, a couple different ways to address the silent return springs on Olympias. But on this, it wasn't the silent return spring issue. I tracked it down by observation, and I just kept going slow and moving. I kept hearing a grind, and I finally looked all over, and I was going slow. It took me a good 10 minutes to look and see what was happening. Was this carriage lock lever that normally locks into the machine, when you pull the lever, it flips it back, and it wasn't flipping it back all the way, and it was kind of just barely grinding, rubbing on these dots, making a zipper sound. So I introduced a slight form to this link, and that allows it to pull back far enough that it clears its carriage spot. Yeah. So that was that, and that was the only repair it needs. Now it just needs minor tuning and adjustments just to bring back some of the tightness and niceness that it might have from the factory. A lot of times there are clearances built into machines, and these clearances are fine. You can live with them. They're livable quirks of a typewriter just from use and how they're built. They're just built machines. They have tolerances. They have clearances. We're going to focus on carriage adjustment points right now. Now, this machine has some side-to-side play like this, and it also has some fore and aft play. Oops, I just pulled that out. That's all right. We're not going to worry about that right now. And it was wiggling. You could see it. You could see it has some wiggle on this side of the machine, but on this side of the machine, it's solid. There's no movement at all. So I know that on this side of the rail, there's some kind of adjustment where or something is out of adjustment. Now on these Olympia machines, the rail has a couple of adjuster points. You can see right here. I'm going to get my pointy tool so we can get in here. Now this carriage adjustment that I'm pointing to right here works as your side-to-side play. It has some side-to-side play for the whole carriage. See right there, it goes in and out. And if that side-to-side play is too much, it's just kind of an annoyance. It's not really something that has to be adjusted out, but they did give you an adjuster to go in and adjust it. And it's a typical 5.5 or 6 millimeter adjuster. There's going to be 2 lock nuts, one back in the back, then the second one, and then finally the top adjuster. And when you raise and lift the carriage, you can see it has this plate on the side, and that kind of acts as its friction guy. So that's a quick adjustment that you can make if you have side to side to tighten up your side to side. Now on the forward and aft, where I noticed that it's wiggling forward and back or up and down on it, what you can do a lot of times with these machines, you can work on this front rail with this screw right here, which is right underneath the ribbon reverse mechanism. And it's just these front screws that are going to attach this rail to its position, and it's on the opposite side, not this rear screw. This rear screw doesn't have anything to do with this front rail. It's just this right here. And a lot of times, to get that wiggle out or to get that wobble out of your carriage, you can just break this screw loose, and then once it's loose, you can see you have some adjustment to tighten and move that carriage rail forward. You don't want it too tight, or else you will get binding and dragging. You don't want it too loose, or it will get too wobbly on you. Now, that being said, if we look back in here, I'm going to zoom in. Okay, there's this, where's my pointy guy? Excuse me. This cross rail right here. Let's see, am I pointing well enough to see? Yeah. This cross rail right here connects this front rail system to the rear rail system. And there's a lock nut right here, and then this adjuster right here. And if you're getting way into Olympia typewriter rebuilding, and something is really wrong, like you have to swap out this front rail, then eventually you'll have to go in and pull this crossbar that aligns the two distances between each rail. Now, to do this when one side is off and a little wibbly wobbly, you can get away with just popping that screw and giving it a little nudge forward, and that will kind of bend this end of the rail out and lock that carriage down. But if you get into, like I said, major surgery, you'll have to go in and work on aligning that. That is something that is rarely done. You almost never have to do it, so it's often overlooked, and you don't need to mess with it if you don't have to. That's a key thing. Okay, so we've got that part of the carriage. That's your just wiggle room adjustments. Now, there's a couple other adjustments you can make on your Olympia machine. When I first got machines, the first thing I used to always do is I would crack these stopper bolts or screws, crack these loose. Let me see, I'll just go ahead and do it. Hopefully I can crack it loose, crack it loose. And then this will slide in and out. And what that does is that kind of it's an anti-bounce thing. So when you drop the carriage, it kind of has a little platform for it to rest on. So the first thing I would do when I was first working on Olympia machines, that would be the first thing I did, because if this thing is too far forward, the carriage won't go down all the way, and you won't actually get a good print reading. If you're chasing your tail, trying to get your alignment up and down, your H's capitalized, lowercase, if this is off too close and it's not letting this carriage settle down, then that will affect that. So the first thing I used to always do is pop this and slide it forward, and then just kind of cinch it down. And then what I'll do is I'll worry about this later. Once we get everything tuned up and the alignment set, then we can go back and just push this so it barely touches that, and that'll give its rest spot where it'll rest just fine without the extra bounce. Another thing on this carriage lift, you have this system back here. And that is your assist springs for your Olympia lift, your carriage lift. And what you can do is you can pull this up like so. And then you can, I can try to do one hand. Yeah, you can, and then you can tighten her up like so. And once you get to a certain point, it's not going to go. And that will make the carriage lift a whole lot easier. You can do it on both sides. That is a really easy thing for home mechanics to work on, and just to get that carriage lift easy to press. It's not going to be super easy, but you want to make sure that it's not adjusted enough that it's going to interfere with carriage systems, so you get full movement. And you're going to want to make sure that it doesn't get too bouncy when you let up off. And that's where this stopper can help. Put that underneath there eventually. So that's a good point to adjust. Ring and cylinder. Do we jump right into ring and cylinder? Okay, we can do ring and cylinder. Basic ring and cylinder on the Olympia machines. When you type, okay, this is your ring spot. I guess that's what it's called. This is the ring, and your platen would be your cylinder. So when you hit a key, this bar goes up, and it has this little pad down here where my finger's pointing, and it hits that ring spot, this ring. And you should have a clearance there where your paper barely drags when you're doing that, or I don't know the exact clearance, but you can adjust that ring and cylinder to get different type actions, different feels, and different print qualities. And this is on an eccentric. So what you'll do is you'll crack these loose. Crack these loose. It's not, you might not be able to do it. A lot of times this can be stiff, but you can see now this whole nut system moves. And as you do that, if you look down the side, it's going to be hard with the camera because it's such a small maneuver. You can see, we'll look up here, we can catch it in action. Yeah, you can see it just by wiggling that, you can see the carriage moves in and out, ever so slightly closer and further away. And that's what this does right here. If you have an Olympia machine that is kind of struggling with print issues and it has a shrunk platen, the platen has shrunk down, a lot of times you can bring the platen closer by putting a little bit more onto this screw, and that will alleviate some of your platen shrinkage issues that will drive this forward. And once you're done adjusting it, you can lock these screws down. If you can't reach a lock screw, like say you adjust it to this closest point and that screw isn't there, you could pull this screw out and go ahead and put it on this other screw spot, because Olympia actually gave you screw slots to move those screws around for access, which is very nice of them to do. So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of these, like I said, a lot of these things you don't have to do. They're just fun to kind of play with and make the machine your own and the feel you like to get it, because you can adjust these machines out to get the feel you like, and that's part of the fun. I think that's all we're going to do for today on this carriage adjustment points, because we pretty much covered all of your main things that I would go through: forward and aft play, side to side play, ring and cylinder, carriage rail, and your stoppers. Those are the main things that you would look for. So we got carriage rails, stoppers, side to side, forward and back, and your other, this is the other side of the ring and cylinder adjustments. So that's your ring and cylinder, ring and cylinder, ring and cylinder. When I label this video, I'm gonna label it carriage, Olympia carriage checks, and then you're gonna have to spend 15 minutes listening to me ramble on to get to the 4 things that we did. That's it, guys. we'll come back and we'll work on another system. But my voice is gone for today. I've already done like 4 or 5 different takes, and hopefully this didn't bore you. And like I said, hopefully you can learn some stuff. I'm trying to explain it quickly and accurately and not breeze over everything, but there are some time limitations. Folks don't like to sit around for hours, and I could spend hours talking about systems and each screw and nut and how it interacts and works with each other. So we could do that if you'd like. If you'd like to go full engineering nerd mode, we can go engineering nerd mode, but I'm not going to do that unless I get specifically asked about things. So if you do have specific nerd engineering questions about Olympia machines, we'll go into that. I think next we're going to do ribbon stuff. We'll just go ahead and work our way forward and then maybe underneath the machine. So carriage today, I'll do some ribbon stuff tomorrow, like the ribbon adjustments and things to look for when you're having ribbon issues. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and hopefully this helps. We'll get more out, and appreciate you.